Hi, this is J.L. Lazoo. Thank you for coming back to KC Zen. Today we're discussing communities and how people can grow throughout different communities. And we want to go into details, get a better understanding of what's going on throughout the country and how that benefits us and what is the best solution to get these things accomplished. So, there's a lot of discussion about the different communities in different parts of the country. Many people who are developers of real estate are purchasing land, raw land, multiple acres of land, and they're using this as a method to develop that land so they can have a community design specific for our people. So that's really a good idea. And then there's also the discussion and activity that's taking place in reference to financial development, and that's in the concept called Black Wall Street. That's one of the terms that people use. And similarly, there are different communities throughout the country that are designed specifically with that main focus in mind, developing hubs in different areas, financial hubs, so that our people can, of course, prosper. Those are all two great ideas. So let's go into details as to what's working, what's not working, how can we improve, and what's a good solution for us as a people. Now, the actual development of real estate for residential purposes and commercial, of course, is basically it's real estate. It's a venture. It's a for-profit venture, a good venture, by the way. And the good thing about that is that you have a lot of options. So you're basically taking a piece of land from scratch, depending on where it's located and the jurisdiction over it, in terms of what's the rights in terms of before a state government. That brings us to the point as what experience do we have on that in terms of historical experience. So there are many communities that were formed by our people throughout the country over the decades. And a lot of them not here, but they did get formalized, they get started, and some of them fell into some difficult times, and some of them really fell into really bad times. And those are the ones that I guess are most common to us because of the atrocities that they had to experience. So that's something in consideration that we have to put in place. And just like what happened in Rosewood, Florida, and other communities where people were actually attacked for building and developing these communities. And that's something that happened multiple times throughout our history. And people will say, well, this is a different time, we're going to change things around. That's the hope that that would be the case. So that's one of the only precautions that I would bring to the attention of people who are focusing in developing more real estate on different parts of the country, that we have to have something that can pretty much not repeat what Rosewood went through in Rosewood, Florida. I'm using that as an example of people being attacked in the midst of forming these communities together. So that's one concern. Now, as far as the economic side of it and the financial part, this is a great thing. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a financial hub for our people? That's awesome. I use the word Black Wall Street because it's one of the movements that most people recognize. However, when you look at the actual facility or location, rather, the city, the community that was actually attacked, that was a really bad experience. So the issue that really comes to mind there is, security. How do you prevent that? What's the measure that is already in part of the plan of Black Wall Street that allows them not to experience the same problem that was in Greenwood, Tulsa? So that's a major consideration. Now that this whole aspect of building communities within the country, throughout the United States, as far as development of real estate and the development of financial hubs, those are great ideas. Without question, no one would say it's a bad idea. However, how do we put it in place? How do we actually execute this in a way that is going to benefit us and we can sustain it? One thing is to build it, and the other thing is to maintain it and sustain it, and most importantly, protect it. And that hasn't been part of the discussion. And the reason why I bring this up is because we have to have a plan. And right now, I've actually spoken to some of the people that are involved in some of these aspects. And when I bring this up, their discussion, there's no plan. There's no specific plan of how they're going to handle it. They're going on probably won't happen, or we hope it doesn't happen, or we just have to deal with it when it happens. So not really well thought out plans as to how that's going to take place. And that's critical because that is a component that people that are going to get involved, whether they're investors or people who are going to become tenants, that's a major consideration for them. And that's something that we have to address. So I want to draw a picture for you as to how all of this looks, and also give a picture of how do we get our position in the best place. So right now, you have these communities that are being spread out through the country. They're buying real estate and developing, for commercial and also residential purposes. And they're scattered. Okay. Now, that's the same thing that's also taking place with the so-called Black Wall Street. These communities are out throughout the country, different independent hubs. So unfortunately, we're running into a lot of problems with both of these ideas. Number one is best way I can give you a comparison is this. So there are 50 states in America. Out of those 50 states, imagine 10 of those states were transplanted to Canada. Another 10 of those states were transplanted to at the bottom of South America in the country of Argentina. Way down south, at the tip of the continent of America. And then you have another 10 states, and they transferred to Panama. So you got 30 states that are not part of the continuous states like we have here today, but they're scattered in different places. So imagine the business communication, distribution, and transportation, all these factors that come into place. And can it be done? Yes, it can be done. It's cumbersome, difficult, and sometimes not all that well executed because of the distances and separation, right? And think about all the different states and countries that are in between all of those 30 states that I just mentioned. So that's what we're starting to look like, something like that. And there's a lot of holes to this puzzle. A lot of pieces are just staggeringly missing. Big differences. And once we learn to connect them closer and merge them together, we're not going to get the impact that we want. And let me explain to you how that works. So that's the current scenario, the picture that I just showed. Now, I want you to think about another way that we could do it, which is very effective. And that is that, let's say we take 3 states. In those 3 states, we take all the Wall Streets that were scattered, let's say, in 40 different cities throughout America, and we bring them to these 3 states. Now, the financial churning that takes place between those 40 districts that are in those 3 states, they start to create like a money belt, which starts turning over and over and over and over again. But here's the thing, it stays in the 3 states. It doesn't go outside of the 3 states. So if it stays in the 3 states, guess who benefits? The people who live in those 3 states. Not everyone else, but the people in those 3 states. And it starts to grow. The machine starts to grow. As it continues to grow, guess what happens? It's going to attract more people. People want to move there because they see that big old machine just churning. And what does that mean? That means that the real estate developers are now in a great position to start developing not just a few communities, but many communities, because there's a demand for what they have to offer. And that starts the wheel to get even larger. It starts to twirl over and over, but it stays within these 3 states. It doesn't go outside of 3 states. That means money in our people's hands starts to go over and over again. Now, you're starting to build some financial stability. Doesn't mean you can't get attacked, but you're starting to build it up in a huge way. Not like a small community, but at the state level, at the 3-state level. This is a huge amount of money. Well, guess what? Now, to solve the problem of security, it requires a political ideology and a political party to execute that ideology. What is it? Political ideology? create an autonomous existence, have our people put a political program that we can now start having our own decision making outside of Washington, outside of the Democratic Party or any political party, and start churning this growth ourselves. And we manage it ourselves. We don't need their assistance because we built it up. And we don't have to share our profits with the Democrats or the Republicans or anyone else, okay? It's all ours. We have it here in those 3 states. Guess what? Now, through this political party, you have the ability to put and execute your own police departments, your own sheriff's department, your own jails, your own prison systems, your own judges through courts, your own district attorneys, your own mayors, your own governors, all in those 3 states. And you reap all of the benefits that happens from this machine that you created. And most importantly, you can maintain it and protect it. And all done within the legal process of America. This is a great idea. So why haven't we done it? Because we've been focusing on building up their society. The Democratic people who run the Democratic Party, they invite you in their party so you can help build their economic machine. It's for their own benefit. That's why they need you. Republicans, same thing. They have their agenda, and so do the Democrats have their own agenda, and now we have to have ours. That's right, ours. We do it politically through our own political process in those 3 states. And guess what? This will create something we've never had before. Self-determination, self-destiny from our own hands, not from other people, but from our own hands. And guess what? We're able to protect it. That sounds almost like what you have in America, right? Isn't that what the Americans are doing? The Democrats and Republicans? Isn't that how they keep themselves going? Aren't they in a position of self-determined? And aren't they like their own separate nation, the nation of America? And that's exactly what that will look like in those 3 states. It will be a nation. And that's what we need, our own independent nation. Because once we control this, why would you have to go to any other people's country? You have your own country that you develop, that you prosper, and you protect. Great. The nation, that's what we need. We must have our own independent nation. Only through that can all these ideas come together. The nation is the glue that will bring all of our people that want it together and put them in those 3 states. And by the way, we have that political party. It's called the Mahali Party. The focus of the party is to deliver that nation that I just mentioned, the nation of Mahali, which means promised land in Kiswahili. Mahali is what we're focusing on. Where is Mahali? Where are those 3 states? Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Those are the 3 states that form the nation. And we're going to start forming this country not in 100 years from now. I want you to understand how quickly we're going to do this, but I want you to compare it to what we've been doing so far. For 50 years, you've been giving your votes, your money, and your finances to the Democratic Party to build America up, how they wanted to do it, how their districts are being improved and yours are being deteriorated. This is what you've been doing for 50 years. Now it's taken them 50 years and they haven't done anything to improve your communities. 50 years. And in 10 years, we'll have this nation, the nation of Mahali. And we will have the financial growth that they never gave us because we'll do it on our own. And they cannot partake on those dollars that we create in those 3 states, the nation of Mahali. Join us. By the way, nation formation in those 3 states starts in 2021. That's right. In 2021 is the beginning of establishing this nation. The things that I just mentioned to you are just getting started in 2021. Remember, in less than 10 years, the nation will be established. Start now. Put together your Wall Street, gather them to those 3 states, put together your real estate development, and gather them in those 3 states, and you see how quickly we will start to grow as a nation. And that's why we have to start this immediately. Thank you.